Hey friends, there's a couple of videos I've been wanting to make lately that I keep postponing because I really want to change the strings on the guitar before I do the video, and that's actually been a hindrance for me for a few days. But I am now going to change the strings on this guitar and thought it'd be a nice opportunity just to document it and talk about a couple things on my mind. So right here I have a Yamaha FG 850, all mahogany, baby. I have a huge fondness in my heart for Yamaha guitars, that's for sure. So the first guitar that I learned how to play on was a Yamaha. It had this pick guard that had, engravings on it, like flowers and stuff. And it might be a 365. I am not exactly sure what it is, but what it was. But it's long gone from my family's possession. My cousin lent it to me as my first opportunity to learn. I was loaned this guitar as long as I promised to learn on it. I could use it, and I sure did. I took that guitar to college with me, and I played it for a couple of years, and then my cousin gave me another guitar until I finally bought my own guitar, and all three of those guitars were Yamaha guitars. So I can't say how much I love Yamaha guitars in general. I think they just make great stuff. This guitar I purchased used from someone who was leaving the country. They were moving to Vietnam, and he was getting rid of his possessions. Honestly, I'm not sure he even played this thing. It is factory new. Not a blemish on it. Barely can tell it's been played. These are still the factory strings on it. I can tell by the way they're wound. It's a brand new guitar. Absolutely brand new. I won't even tell you what I paid because it was wonderful. And he was happy to sell it because he was leaving town the next day, actually. I drove to Boston to get this guitar. So factory strings are coming off this thing. And I'm going to put on my D'Addario EJ16s, phosphor bronze lights. So yeah, my first three guitar experiences were Yamaha guitars, and still in love with Yamaha guitars. But yeah, this guitar has never seen a string change. Never seen a string change. Doesn't even have an ounce of wear on the frets except for the stuff I've probably put on it because I've been jamming on it lately. It's real nice. It's super nice. These pegs they're very, very plasticky. Like, they actually squeak under my hand a little bit when I rest my palm on the strings. And I can hear it. I have hypersensitive hearing, but I can hear my hand brushing across the plastic strings as I'm playing the guitar. No one else probably hears it, but I do. I forgot my wooden block. I have a wooden block over at my bench where I actually keep the pegs here in order. So I'm going to try to keep them in order right here. Put them back as I pulled them off. Not sure in the end if it really ever matters, but that sixth string peg is holding a fatter string. Much fatter than the first string. And this is like the next dilemma as a guitar player I have. What to do with used strings. Like, I used to go through a couple sets of strings a week at least. And now I'm still going through, based on the amount of guitars that I have in my possession presently, I'm changing strings often. So I have a big old bag of used strings. And a lot of times I'll recycle. I'll keep not entirely dead strings in my guitar cases. All of my guitar cases have like the last or a nice or a set of strings that isn't totally dead in it in case I need it in an emergency. So I don't chuck them right away, but if they're super dead, they definitely hit the bin. But I have a bag of string, and some of them are, in rough shape. Don't know if they could be used. Never really found a solution for that. I just keep stashing them in a bag. So, of course, I've dreamt of projects with them. I have a creative project in mind that maybe I'll dream up an actual manifestation of in the future. But for now, I'm just putting them in a bag. So again, these are D'Addario Phosphor Bronze. Phosphor Bronze EJ16s. These are lights. I used to play exclusively mediums, 13s to 56s. And no wonder why I had experienced some carpal tunnel back in those days. Fairly regularly, actually. It was also a factor that I was playing 5, 6, 7, 8, and yes, some weeks 9 gigs in a week. Yes, there were some weeks back in those days I was playing 9 gigs in a week in the summertime. Lunchtime gig, and then I play an evening gig, and many gigs. Back in 2003, I played over 280 gigs. That's a lot of strings that I went through. I think I was really just playing gigs so that I could afford strings. Really. So, string change is always a fun moment. Although I have to say, I really like when a string has some wear on it, like fresh onto the guitar. I don't always like the sound, you know. These are phosphor bronze, so they're not as bright as a straight, like 80-20, I believe would be called, like a straight bronze string. Those are really mega bright. But phosphor bronze I found has a nice mellowness, you know, a nice balance between bright and mellow. And so, yeah, I have been committed to the light strings for some time now. I think partly that commitment was because I wasn't playing as much and it was just easier on my hands. That's for sure. But I also don't feel the need to have those medium strings. I really like a beefier tone on the first and second string, the high strings. And I wouldn't mind experimenting with you know, maybe back up to some 13s on the first string, you know. That might be worth it to me to get a nice beefy tone at some point. But again, like, it's just harder to play. It's harder to play. I often also tune down a half step. And that also makes it easier on the hands. Much easier on the hands, which I appreciate now. I appreciate very much. I'm not sure if y'all can see what I'm up to here, but I think you can. Check out my string technique. My cousin Brian taught me how to change my strings back in the day. One of those things was very helpful to learn, right? How do I change my strings? I had that experience in person, which is nice. I didn't learn it from a video or anything. It's kind of a lineage. This whole thing I do with my hand, this comes from my cousin Brian. I have done it since day one. Since day one. I used to be afraid to take all the strings off at once. But many luthier discussions and my own experience kind of working on guitars in my hobby time has definitely eased my fears of taking all the strings off at once. I used to be very cautious about it. Very cautious. Let me see, little tips here. I can tell you about changing strings if that's something that's interesting to you. You always want the string to come off of the nut with a downward break angle, and you can make sure that's happening, or you can help it happen by making sure the the string is actually winding below the wounds or the winding part. So it's pushing the end of the string down. You don't want the curl to be underneath the string, keeping the string up. You want that break angle off of the nut, preventing, buzzes from like a flat, preventing buzzes and putting pressure down on the nut, locking the guitar down tightly, so that you have as much tone coming from all these pieces of wood that have been tuned to deliver that tone. It's really just about that, getting that first wind below the first like full circle there. Not sure if that makes sense, but something else has been on my mind lately. One of my main influences in guitar. I started looking up again my main guy, man, Chris Smither. Chris Smither, one of my earliest, most powerful influences that sent me in the direction of learning how to fingerstyle guitar and also to perform solo and choose material that works for that. My experience with Chris Smither started in St. Johnsbury, Vermont, back in 1990. I suppose it was either late 93 or early 94. $5 college student ticket price to get into a concert in a little church in St. Johnsbury, Vermont. I reeled in a couple of my friends. We paid our $5, sat in the pews, literally in the pews. And Chris Smither came out and stomped and hollered and blew our minds. I mean, we're just young college kids, and I'd never really seen someone, do what I now think of as like a Sun House kind of thing, where single person comes out and sits down and just proceeds to blow the roof off the place all by himself. It was really first time I had seen that happen, and I remember he was so sweaty, and now I know that experience, because I also have that experience sometimes. I don't know if I have the blowing the roof off part like he did, but man, he was so good. I think one of the reasons I still play is the power of that experience of seeing him that day. And I actually saw him again. I've seen him numerous times now, but I saw him once in St. Louis, Missouri. I handed him my CD, my first CD. It's a little cringy for me, but handed him my first CD, and I said, "Thank you. You've been an inspiration to me." I can't remember what else I said, but that was quite nice. He was very, very kind. Very kind. I have an autographed picture, actually, from then, too, I think. And I gave him my CD. Imagine, he's had millions of CDs handed to him, but quite amazing. That was like 10 years after I saw him the first time. Yeah, and I think about, I need to go see him again at some point. He lives here in Massachusetts. He has for a very long time. It's Western Massachusetts. Do a guitar lesson with Chris Smither. That would be incredible. I got okra enough to choke you, beans of every kind. So good. This is something that I do all the time. You may have noticed on every single guitar that has had a string change by me. I always leave the curls. I always leave the curls. And I will tell you why I leave the curls. I'm going to reveal why I leave the curls on my string changes. Because twice, not just once, but twice, I had reached over to the top of my guitar for some reason. And because I had snipped the strings and there's these little weapons sticking up, depending on how you position them, I reached over and one of those little string ends went up underneath my fingernail. It was excruciatingly painful. And you would think once would be enough, but That actual same thing happened to me twice. And at that point, I stopped trimming the strings. I never, ever trim the strings. I know to some it looks a little sloppy. To me, it doesn't look sloppy. That looks like safety and security to me. I love it. Absolutely love it. I'll always give these strings a little tug. Take out some of their, take out some of the excess slack. You know, they want to stretch, so I always stretch them a little bit. And then I'll tune it, and then I'll stretch them all again. And then we'll tune it again. I have this up to a D sharp, E flat. And there we go. Pull some tension out of here. At this point, I can't really converse at the same time as I do this. A lot of my brain is focused on the sound. So. All right. There we go. Man, bright strings. I can hear that fresh, brand new string brightness here. It even makes this old mahogany guitar sound bright. I'm not playing with a pick or anything, so it has that warmth of just plain old fingers. So I'm gonna do a video on this soon with the new strings in place. Let's see. Let's do a little Townes Van Zandt. One verse of a Townes Van Zandt song. Let's do the last verse of To Live's to Fly. Let's see. We all got holes to fill. Them holes are all that's real. Some fall on you like a storm. Sometimes you dig your own. The choice is yours to make, and time is yours to take. Some sail upon the sea, some toil upon the stone. Well, to live is to fly low and high. So shake the dust off of your wings and the tears out of your eyes. Thanks for watching.